Formed from a famous talent show, they're an idol group on the rise with unstoppable momentum. The group is called Face, spelt F/Ace. They're our heroine's bias, with the pink-haired member, Tamo, dedicating this next part to all the girlfriends nationwide. Utage Kinoshita is blown back. She thought he was a god. She thought she was going to die, but with that close-up, she could probably live a few more years. Her family was one you might expect of the typical super idol-obsessed girl. Her parents thought it was nice that their daughter had interests, and that it was quite amusing. Her younger sister, Komare, thought she was crazy and scary, and her younger brother, Yamato, was looking down on Utage for never even having met her beloved Tama. He thought it was more practical to focus on his studies. At 16 years old, Utage was just a high schooler, indulged by her family, who saw her bias as emotional sustenance. She believed Taman could save the world today with his handsome face. She lined up her acrylic stands of him at the perfect angle, staring at her impressive collection of his merch. She thought not only could his face kill, but he was way too sexy to be a high school senior. He was Face's sexy and wild member, with top-notch dance skills comparable to professional dancers, and constantly impregnated girls nationwide in their minds? Hey yo, ladies, is that what you're thinking about your favorite idols like Jungkook or Jimin? Let me know in the comments for research. She smiled, staring at his appearance in the talent show 2 years ago, where he said he wanted everyone in the whole world to smile. She got startled, receiving the upcoming Face Dome concert lottery result notification. Giddy with anticipation, knowing the odds of getting drawn were 95 to 1, it was very hard to get. No matter what the result, she prepared to accept it. Her jaw dropped, seeing the message inside. She won! Utage's supervisor apologized, having called her to fill in on her day off. Miss Toda was currently in the hospital due to appendicitis, so Utage was asked to take care of her client during this time. Utage brightly accepted. She of course needed more money to support her bias. She started part-time housekeeping originally because it worked with her schedule, but now she's also gotten quite used to it. She saw her client's name listed as Tamon Fukuhara, the exact same name as her beloved Tamon. She drooled, imagining him whispering to her, "Keep it a secret from me, kitten," but knew there's no way her Delulu fantasy could be true. Entering the disgustingly dirty apartment, she was caught off guard by her client sitting fetal position in a corner, but easily recognized the face imprinted in her retina daily. With her telling him she was going to vacuum, he hid further into his hoodie and affirmed it was okay. She considered the idea he might be surprisingly introverted in private. She shortly came back to ask for the laundry detergent and found him curling and shaking over the fact he wasn't told someone so young would be coming. He couldn't get into idle mode at home. He didn't know what to do. She thought he was super gloomy, that she probably wanted a stink bug to kill him. He assumed the worst, thinking that she'd write a post making fun of him, that he was a friendless loser, that he'd become a laughingstock, and the fans who once supported would brand him a traitor. He imagined himself getting shanked at night and left to bleed out, and thought life would be better if he were never born. Watching him cry, Utage wondered if this guy really was Tamon. Was he really the visual serum Tamon? She tried coping as she worked, telling herself with the upcoming Dome concert, he must just be tired. She panicked, thinking he might retire from mental exhaustion. She'd die for sure. She admitted she's been a loyal follower since the talent show 2 years ago. And even knowing maybe she shouldn't say this, she told him she was glad he was born and decided to become a singer. He apologized, knowing since she liked him this much, seeing him now, her image of him must be shattered. He thought an imposter like himself didn't deserve anyone's support. Utage froze, thinking about all the fans who supported him just like her. She was angry, asking if he was looking down on their adoration. She brandished her idol fans and went into a delusional rant about how he turned their world into heaven, how he was handsome, smart, and unparalleled. To her, he was a god, and the idea of that was indisputable. She shouted, "Tamon is a god, an emissary of love who came down to earth for all young girls. He's also an angel." She wanted him to repeat after her, even if it was the man himself. She wouldn't bow down to a Tamon anti-fan. She didn't think someone with this kind of personality would want the image he portrayed on stage. And he didn't. It was the agency that set his persona. There is someone he looked up to. Though he thought of it as utterly presumptuous, he wanted to be like that person and make everyone smile. Utage remembered that's what he said at the talent show. She believed even if his cheerfulness was an act, it wasn't fake. His real intent was why he was able to move so many people. When she told him he wasn't an imposter, he got a vision of his manager telling him she didn't need the real him and to not show his true self to others. He curled up again, saying after he became popular, all sorts of people started criticizing him, so he gradually lost faith in what his fans said. He couldn't trust what he wanted to believe, and he felt so ashamed of himself for that. The person he trusted least of all was himself. He wanted to go deeper into the jungle or on a secluded island and live without humans all alone. But Utage would point out how he was just talking about his dream, and if he couldn't believe himself, she was going to keep supporting him until he did. She was going to cheer for Mr. Gloomy Hara. On the Face YouTube channel, Tamon introed himself as the missionary of love and positivity, the sexy and wild member of the group. And despite the next guy being the youngest, Aori Sakaguchi told the fans they could rely on him. He was the prince in the group. Natsuki Ishibashi was cheerful and cute. He was everyone's angel. Keito Tachibana loved rice balls. He was the leader of Face. And lastly, Rintaro Kai only coldly referred to himself as Kai-des. Utage was somewhat at a loss that this Tamon was the same guy. Doing the cooking, she was surprised to see how empty his fridge was last time. The trash was full of instant noodle bowls too. He quickly apologized for spending money recklessly and creating so much trash when he was trash himself. Utage didn't mean it that way. She was just impressed by how he could sing and dance while living like this. She presented his food, and he started to go into a panic, imagining a scenario where he'd choke on it and die. He saw her as a demon, but he'd quickly grab and eat the food turned away, and he turned back. Idle mode turned on! Leaning over her, he told her, "This is bad. This is just what I like. Can I lick it clean here?" This got Utage bright red. And even though he was referring to the fried chicken, she exploded. Utage Kinoshita, 16 years old, passed away today. Cause of death? Tamon was too erotic. Tamon went back into gloomy mode because she frightened him, but she argued she was the one who was frightened. She didn't know he could switch modes so suddenly. He apologized because he's been so busy lately that his switch sometimes acted up. He started hyperventilating and fell over. How much effort did it take to perfectly meet fan ideals? Even so, Utage thought he still did, and he worked hard to make everyone smile. She fed him spring rolls for dinner, and that day, during his show appearance, when the host told him he was giving off particularly strong pheromones, he answered it was because of the delicious tuna spring roll he had recently. Utage remembered, and Tamon got so embarrassed hearing himself say that on TV. Later, Tamon would shakily approach Utage, bringing up that his manager told him to take home selfies for the fan club, but couldn't switch modes at home. He needed her help. Utage, having learned Tamon instinctively responded to cheering fans, she pulled up her fan, and he instantly switched modes, telling her he was aiming for her heart. She ended up helping him get plenty of alluring home selfies, and had to slap herself to keep her hormones under control. He thanked her. Because of her help, he didn't have to throw up trying to take photos. However, Utage never got tired of seeing his handsome face. No matter what, in her eyes, he was the best in the world, and she went back down from that claim. As she began her leave for the day, he thanked her for everything, telling her it was like his mental state has been promoted from filth to old trash. Fans always complimented him, and every time he heard it, it made him happy. Utage started to tear up, and Tamon worried he said something wrong again. She told him he was misunderstanding. She wasn't getting complimented by Tamon, but instead by Gloomy Hara. So, she was especially moved. He turned back and told her it was all thanks to her for scolding him so often. Utage's heart beat rapidly as her bag dropped. She gushed, hearing Supernova song lyrics in her mind. But due to a misunderstanding, Tamon tightened his hoodie around his face, apologizing for his gross smile. She rushed, trying to uncover his face because it was such a waste. She ended up falling over him, drooling over his clumsy smile. But their moment was ruined by a visitor. Tamon's manager, Wataru, was furious, telling Utage to know her place. She apologized and ran out, wondering what she was doing. Being driven by her desires, she pounced on a national treasure. She felt guilty. She felt she shouldn't be supporting Mr. Gloomy Hara. It should only be Tamon. At school, Utage's friends read a news report about an idol being victimized by a stalker, claiming the stalker even came into his house and hugged him. When Riko said that's why she couldn't stand low-class girlfriend fans, Utage replied, "That's right. The girl was so out of line, she should die of stupidity." Yuina then flashed this month's Tamon photos, adding that the amount of skin shown was her happiness index. Utage went into a daze, gushingly thinking about how much of a zombie he was at home. With her falling over, her friends had no idea what was wrong. Utage didn't know what to do. These images kept replaying in her mind. The next time she saw him, she was sure she'd fall even harder. She was afraid she'd pounce on him again. Tamon would hear the doorbell ring and got up, excited to see Utage, but was instead met with Miss Toda, his usual housekeeper. He sighed and hid himself as she rambled on. Utage was glad Miss Toda was back from surgery. She felt it was time for her to go back to being a fan from afar. On the night of the Dome concert, Face gave their intro to thousands of fans. They would do their bit, with both Tamon and Aori blowing their kisses to the crowd. As the girls continued to cheer, Utage knew Face would definitely become the face of this era. As they performed their hit song Supernova, Utage screamed that Tamon was so cool, and Tamon heard it, finding the one sign in the crowd that was hers, reading Tamon Colt. It warmed his heart. During show intermission, Utage considered getting a drink before going home. She was excited and sad at the same time. She had mixed feelings. She suddenly got grabbed and taken backstage. It was Tamon, staring at her, sweating and gasping. He told her he saw her, and she started tearing up, hearing he recognized her amongst all his fans. He wiped her tears, telling her that he wanted to make everyone smile. Making her cry, he asked if it had to do with why she wasn't coming to his house anymore. He backed her against the wall, as she told him any fan would want to know him more. That's why she couldn't have him all to herself, or she might do something that would put him in a difficult position. He told her that was for him to decide. He didn't want her to say that. Grabbing her and putting his head on her shoulder, he wanted her to support him by his side, and he couldn't live without her anymore. She couldn't tell him no like this. She told him, okay, and he quickly jumped away, covering his face. So she scolded him, saying the show wasn't over, so he couldn't switch modes. He had to go back and finish, and that she'd be cheering him on. He turned back, face blushing as she left. She was also just as much of a mess. Skipping through the streets, Utage felt as thrilled as ever, all because Face was finally having a fan interaction event. Spending her life savings on all those CDs had to be worth it. She was going to need to scrub down her body extra hard and also get some new clothes, which meant she'd be working her butt off. As she walked into Tamon's house, she didn't expect to see him struggling with his manager, insisting that he wanted to retire. Wataru would have to take a call outside from another one of the idol members. Babysitting these kids was a real chore. On the other hand, tears were already rolling down Utage's cheek. Hearing that Tamon wanted to quit, the thought of a meet and greet made him so nervous, he felt he was gonna throw up. She tried to remind him of his dream of wanting to make everyone smile, but his mind would spiral, thinking about how he'd have to talk to so many people. He imagined his fans would be grossed out by his sweaty hands and say, well, mushroom farm. He didn't even understand what the hell sexy and wild meant. What's so good about a guy who could get arrested for sexual harassment at any time? Even questioning why people would use up their life savings to buy his CDs. Utage snapped. Who the hell was he to talk down about Tamon's hand sweat, or even breathing the air around him? She immediately calmed down, seeing how she almost pushed him down again. If he was going to do this, it had to be done right. Tamon wanted to do everything he could to not let his fans down. With that being said, Utage brought out a box filled with 2 years worth of magazines, interviews, blogs, and internet articles she had saved up. She also had documents of everything he had said on TV and in all the media. Even a sutra notebook that she used to feed her delusions. Wow, she is really delulu. Do any of you ladies do this? Leave it in the comments and explain. With all this, he'd probably be able to pull through, and she'd be able to attend the meet and greet in peace. He then asked her for some help with simulations for the event. Enjoying such bliss for free was something she could do. That was until he started calling himself trash. Now, she was ready to offer up all her time in this life and the next. Moments later, Utage tried to keep it together as she gave her support. Like a switch, idol mode was back on. Tamon pulled her in from the waist, telling her, I'll never let you switch Oshis. She was so excited that she exploded again, causing Tamon to return to Mr. Gloomy Hara. He apologized for hurting and relying on her so much. Honestly, this made Utage very happy. Whenever she was going through hard times, Tamon's face was always there to lift her spirits. So there was nothing that made her happier than being of help to him. She'd happily go through all the moments of her head exploding, and wouldn't mind giving up her life to support him. However, he'd use up too much energy, causing him to cough up blood. While he took a break, Utage let him know she'd be coming to the meet and greet as well. He hoped she'd be able to score his performance. With his cute expression, she'd explode once more. On the day of the meet and greet, the venue was stacked with girls who were all hyped up. Thousands of people, and they all loved Tamon. While he was making heads explode, Utage had to make sure her jealousy wouldn't ruin this day. Suddenly, two girls in front of her started arguing. Utage tried to remain peaceful, but she couldn't let such things happen when Tamon was here. Anyone who dirtied Tamon's divine ears had no place in this world. Unexpectedly, security would throw the three of them out. And just like that, Utage's paradise was taken. On the train ride back, she thought it was all good, so far as Tamon was happy. To make up for her losses, she planned to drown herself in work. Once she walked into the office, her supervisor pointed her to a special guest waiting for her. Of course, it was none other than Tamon. Definitely not an illusion. He was really upset about her not attending the meet and greet. Embarrassed, she claimed it was because she lost her ticket. Regardless, her promise needed to be kept. Tamon was willing to respond to any request she had. She asked him to be her Tamon for just this moment. His response? A cold no. Without even thinking twice, he reverted to gloomy Hara, complaining about how he wanted her praises. He was waiting that whole time so she could see the fruits of his labor, hoping it would make her happy. Surprisingly, this got Utage's heart racing fast. A perfect score for him. During lunch break, Riko and Yuina were talking about the meet and greet. Due to how close the idol group was getting to their fans, Yuina feared their bias might end up meeting a fangirl in private. If this happened, she and Riko happily agreed to kill the girl. As for Utage, she was dragged into their killing plans without a choice. Knowing full well she was the main culprit, she had to keep it a secret. When she got to Tamon's place, she'd see him crying by the corner of the room. Apparently, he'd soon be going on a show where the viewers would rate stylish celebrities. Hearing this, she was thrilled for him, but Tamon feared this was the end. The clothes he was wearing were the only clothes he owned. Utage would encourage him, saying the fans wouldn't mind his lack of fashion sense. Although she liked the gloomy Hara look, she didn't want to miss the chance to show off his great physique. So, they'd head off to buy some clothes. While she was waiting at the mall, he'd meet up with her with a paper bag over his head. Using all the info and perspective she had as a fan, Utage planned to come up with the best look. This was her duty. Taking a peek in the dressing room, she was knocked out by how hot he looked in these new clothes. No matter the outfit, he could make it all work. With one of the outfits, she'd have to help him with putting on a necklace. Afterwards, they'd head to a cafe, which Utage sometimes visited on her way home from school. Seeing the guys who were hanging out at another table, Tamon felt a bit jealous. Utage admired the fact that someone as amazing as him would enjoy stuff normal people liked. When it came to going out with his group, Tamon's expression said all she needed to know. Riko and Yuna suddenly approached her, causing Utage to panic. Tamon introduced himself as her friend, and Riko suspected he was her boyfriend and insisted he show his face. But he'd suddenly grab Utage's hand, and they'd run out through the streets, like this was some kind of secret date. Once they got away, Utage immediately apologized for putting him in potential danger from the paparazzi. For this, she was ready to receive capital punishment. She could never forgive herself, and vowed to stay at least 3 meters away from him from now on. He took off the paper bag, asking if she liked him. The answer was obvious, but she was still blown away to dust because of his handsomeness. A few days later, his outfits were praised as #1 for having a boyfriend look. When next she came to his apartment, he looked roasted. She'd immediately freshen him up to preserve his handsome looks. It turned out that he was trying to make a simple rolled omelet, but the outcome wasn't even decent enough to be shown. Tamon threatened to go on hiatus, just so he could learn how to fry an egg. Utage immediately reminded him that he was a top chef, whose best meal was making his fans smile. This encouraged him for some reason. Wataru walked in at that moment, applauding her for being able to drag Tamon out of his nervous breakdown mode. Who'd have thought hiring a housekeeper could rehabilitate him this much? He'd been working obediently lately, all thanks to the chores lifted off his shoulders. Wataru asked her how much counted as household chores, and she answered that it was pretty much anything, even going shopping and taking pets for a walk. Somehow, he could tell they practiced for the meet and greet, and even went shopping together. Utage and Tamon quickly got on their knees, apologizing. To their surprise, Wataru also knelt, begging her to keep helping with Tamon. The truth was, they were a small agency with no connections, so Wataru was happy to dump the depressive zombie on her. Basically, she had to go ahead for anything now. However, her personal desires had to be suppressed. Thinking about him showing off for her, she slapped their face and put her desires away. At the age of 16, Tamon came all alone to Tokyo for his audition. His manager barely took care of him, and he didn't get along well with his fellow idols. It was given that he'd rely on a busybody fangirl who happened to come into his life, so she needed to work hard for him. Out of nowhere, a candid photo of Tamon popped up on her phone. She screamed, startling him. He found her quite interesting, especially the way she randomly yelled. Right now, she was special to him. Tamon was excellent at fan service, hence why he could say stuff that made her so happy. Earlier on, she was just trying to escape reality. Utage thought she was so boring to talk to with her old friend who complained. When she'd been flattened like an empty husk, that's when she came across Tamon on TV. Hearing him say, "I want to make everyone smile," was something she wouldn't find herself uttering even in 100 years. Ever since then, her days have been so fun. His dream became her dream. That was why she didn't need to be special. Just having him show her his dream was enough, or so she thought. Seeing he was wearing the necklace they got at the mall, Utage started blushing. She felt something she couldn't describe. While watching one of Face's commercial shows, Utage giggled to herself. She fantasized about being a trampoline that would catapult them to stardom. As much as romantic fantasies were fun, she didn't want to be the impurity that polluted such a precious space. She'd snap back to reality, freaking out when she remembered Tamon kissing the necklace she picked out. Most of all, what exactly did he mean when he called her special? Over in Tamon's apartment, Utage saw him struggling with the script for tomorrow's show. While scripts were prepared for the idols, there were still some free talk sessions. If this wasn't solid, he was definitely going to break character. Looking at the script, Utage thought it was awful. Tamon also complained about having to meet with Audi. Utage figured they were just close for the sake of the cameras. Panicking, he immediately apologized for shattering her dreams. Due to his nature, he hadn't opened up to the other members that much. He felt like a jerk for swaying people's hearts like some con artist, but there wasn't much that could be done. So he begged to be arrested and thrown into the slammer for fake friend crimes. However, Utage was moved to think he'd be working so hard to keep the fans happy. Plus, he was so good at acting that they never had any doubt. The perfect con artist. She then told him to be proud of his skills, and after making dinner, she left. While thinking of a new recipe to try out, she'd accidentally bump into Audi. With his clean-cut good looks and overflowing privilege, he was considered Face's prince. Both his parents being famous entertainers meant he was a thoroughbred who had been in ads and TV shows since he was in grade school. Not only did Utage bump into this handsome guy, but he was holding her hand. She asked him to keep his hands reserved for Tamon and ran off. Shortly after, she realized she dropped her homemade fan. Going back to Tamon's place, she rang the doorbell. With no answer, she let herself inside. Hearing loud voices in the room ahead, she cracked her glow stick and slowly went to check things out. The sight left her too stunned to speak. Audi was scolding Tamon, calling him a slowpoke and whacking him with Utage's fan because he wasn't done with the script. Noticing her, they tried to play things off by acting all nice. No way was she gonna fall for that ridiculous act. Who did they think they were fooling? Audi was obviously smacking Tamon with her homemade fan earlier, and that was an unforgivable act. Tamon tried to calm her down, but she was too far gone. Filled with rage, she picked up Audi, tossing him outside. Then she went to check on Tamon. He told her that Audi was always like that, so he was used to it. Audi crashed back inside with a flying kick, demanding that she apologize for throwing him out. Mr. Gloomy Hara ended up apologizing instead, blaming himself for everything. He assumed he'd get blacklisted and blackballed for ruining tomorrow's shoot. Utage urged him not to think about it, reminding him that he could influence a whole economy just by standing in place. She then introduced herself to Audi as Tamon's housekeeper. Still, he saw her as one of those crazy fans. No lies there. He dragged the quivering Tamon, questioning what was so good about him. A guy like this being the center of the group made him sick. Utage would grab his hand, making it clear that wherever Tamon stood was the center of the world. It didn't matter if he was sexy and wild or a loser. People like this irritated Audi. He claimed they didn't have a sense of pride and were nothing but absolute pieces of shit. Just before Utage could reply, Tamon interrupted, going, "Tamon is God!" He stood up for her, explaining that she was a kind and brave person who could get mad for the sake of others. She was nothing like the people Audi was talking about. Wataru then showed up, yelling at Audi for breaking the door, and gave him some bubble tea to calm down. While Tamon started breaking down again, Utage encouraged him to get back to work. Wataru fixed the door, and she prepared some drinks for everyone. Before leaving, Tamon promised he'd do his best at the shoot tomorrow, so he asked her to watch him. On the elevator, she'd bump into Audi again. She tried closing the doors, but he'd stop her. Pinning her back to the wall, He warned her not to tell a soul what she saw today. She promised not to tell anyone about his true nature, but he felt she still wanted something in return. He offered to make Tamon do anything for her, but she'd flip the positions, threatening to end his life if he insulted Tamon one more time. Her eyes had bloodlust written all over. Auri wouldn't have to worry about people finding out his true nature. She couldn't care less about those she disliked. She swore to never speak to him again and bid him farewell. During break, Utage worried about Tamon having an enemy working so close to him. She'd squeal with excitement, seeing a notification from the official Face account. They were going to be releasing a new Heartbreak ballad, but they'd be using a new center for this song. The center was a special position reserved for those with only immense talent and popularity. Basically, the group's face, and this was normally Tamon's spot. But he was ready to accept whatever they threw at him. For Utage, this was as good as the end of the world. She rushed over to Tamon's apartment, arguing there was absolutely no reason for him to get replaced. Her face had turned red, fuming with anger. He explained that this project was being done because Auri had wanted to be the center for a while now. He was both popular and talented, so Tamon believed he'd fit right in. Of course, Utage thought Auri was just trying to steal the spotlight. Not really having much confidence, Tamon couldn't blame anyone if he wasn't chosen. Regardless, Utage promised his fans would be there, cheering him on. But if he wanted to make everyone in the world smile, this wasn't the time to be giving up. Crying a river of tears, he confessed that when the project was brought up, he was so frustrated that he cried into his pillow until it was sopping wet. Summer vacation was finally here, and while the world seemed to be excited for festivals and beach trips, Utage and her friends had more important things to worry about. The special program to pick a new center for Face was airing its first episode tonight. If Tamon got judged unfairly, best believe Utage was going to arm herself and attack the agency. She was scared of what she would do if the results weren't in her favor. In order to make sure they could watch the show calmly, Rico decided they should review who Face was. First was the current center, their beloved Tamon, the insanely hot man who was a literal god when he walked. Second was the leader, Kato. He was the approachable one you could actually imagine dating. Next up was Natsuki, the cunningly cute type, a pro idol. Rintaro was more of the mature and mysterious type. Last was Auri, the projected winner. His strengths were how frail and sensitive he was. As the program started, the girls sharpened their vision and focused. The title of this new song was Rain. It took the regrets a man felt when he realized the weight of what he had lost and turned it into a lyrical melody, a ballad about heartbreak. The theme of the first episode would be a visual battle known as Heartache. The idols would try to best express these sentimental feelings from the song, and it would be judged with a point system. Audi went first, and his performance telling a woman not to go while soaking in the rain blew them away. A phenomenal performance, but not beyond Utage's expectations. She was certain Tamon would go beyond what they expected. However, Tamon's performance didn't depict the sadness of a man who had lost something, but the thirst of a king who wanted it all because he wants for nothing. In other words, it didn't fit the song one bit. You couldn't tell that to the girls though. They loved every bit of his display. Why exactly were they choosing another center? That's when the followers of the Church of Tamon realized that his life completely lacked the concept of heartbreak. After the show, Audi teased him for being a total failure. At this rate, he would become the center. Audi was eager to see what Utage's face looked like now. With a demeaning tone, he told Tamon, "Hopefully, she's not sick of you." Back home, Tamon thought his life was over as he sprouted mushrooms everywhere. He couldn't even fall in love with someone, so how was he supposed to imagine what heartbreak felt like? The more he tried, the more he turned into Harihara. It seemed like that was all he could do. Suddenly, they started hearing loud bangs on the ceiling. Audi burst through the door, complaining about the mushrooms. Apparently, he lived upstairs. He started boasting of how he displayed the way a center was meant to be, but Utage didn't care about him at all. He'd called Tamon an idiot, but she believed there was still a chance for him to turn things around. She then asked Audi not to insult Tamon again. He didn't understand why everyone was so obsessed with Tamon, especially Utage, who had seen what he was really like. People had always believed Audi would be the center of Face. All his pride got to his head. He angrily turned to Utage, demanding she come over to him if he became the center. Of liking the video and subscribing to my channel, let me become your center. Because here on my Shoujo Weekly, I've got tons of stories for you to enjoy in the shoujo genre. Not sure where to start? You can check out my completed series playlist. It's filled with over 60 hour-long plus videos for you to fill your time with. You can play them while doing chores, grinding video games, and even to sleep. So come on, hit that subscribe and I'll be your guy. Utage thought Aori was asking her to be his housekeeper and told him he'd have to hire someone else. He demanded she stop coming to Tamon's place so much and open up her schedule. If she knew Tamon was going to win, she shouldn't have a problem with that. Unless she had a feeling he'd lose. Just like that, she agreed to Aori's bet, leaving Tamon in a tough spot. She immediately apologized to him for accepting the bet, but she couldn't bring herself to say Tamon can't win. Even as a lie, Utage told him to pay no mind to it and do his best. However, he wasn't about to let her go. Leaving wasn't an option, and she was willing to do anything to help him win. Tamon had always looked up to idols ever since he was little. He really loved his fans, but falling in love with one person wasn't something he had experienced. He had no idea what love was. The love Utage had for him wasn't the same most people would define. To get some experience, he'd ask her out to a festival, despite the never-ending Tamon fest going on in her brain. This was still a lot for her. But if he was going to sing about heartbreak, he needed to learn about love first. It was said people gathered here in search of love, unaware of what awaited them was a new encounter or goodbyes, the sanctuary for lovers passed down since time immemorial. This was none other than the summer festival. He wanted to go there to find out what love was, so he could win the second round in the competition to decide the center. Going into that kind of dazzling party night all by himself, the sheer amount of positive energy would reduce him to cinders. Crazy to think he got all this information from a love specialist. Either way, Utage thought it was delusional that a lone fan such as herself would be allowed to go with the Tamon to a summer festival. Tamon put off the gloomy Hara act, letting her know she was the only one he could do this with. Out on the balcony, Aori's mind thought about how the fans, the people in the entertainment industry, and even those with no interest in him would at least change their tone a little if they approached him. Yet, Utage wasn't doing any of that, and it annoyed him. He'd see Tamon sneaking out with a paper bag over his head, and this got him even more riled up. At the summer festival, Utage was dressed up and ready. She would do everything she could to help out in Tamon's search for love. As his housekeeper, of course. This was just another form of housework for her. Definitely not romantic. Approaching her, Tamon was stunned by her beauty. Before he could comment on her yukata, she blurted out her excitement at how black hair suited him. Luckily, she was meeting with gloomy Hara. If it were Hari Hara, fireworks would have been shooting out of her head right now. They had no idea Aori was behind a tree spying on them. Utage suggested they visit some stalls, but Tamon went missing. Using his binoculars, he was literally searching for love, but she'd protect him from anyone trying to report. The heat was a lot for Tamon, making him wonder if it was due to all the couples around. But Utage told him it was just the air temperature. He tried to comment on her yukata again, but she'd cut him off, pointing to a guy who was trying to show off to a girl. They wondered if that was love. They'd visit the same stall where Utage had to shoot the prizes. She took the rifle, and with her keen precision, she perfectly hit all the prizes that had to do with face. For her, this was nothing compared to trying to win concert tickets. When Tamon took his turn, all he could win was a yucky stick. Chocolate shiitake flavor. Ugh. If things kept going like this, the only thing he'd have gained was getting bit by mosquitoes. Despair gripped him as he regretted coming here. It was itchy, scary, and hot. Utage reminded him that he had masterfully shot through the hearts of his fans. He was a sniper of love. So, she was certain he'd find out what love actually meant. Shortly after, she'd point him to a couple sharing takoyaki. So, he decided to get some. But she wasn't expecting him to feed her. He looked so hot as he told her to say ah, and that made the fireworks go off, blowing her away. From then on, his attitude completely changed, acting all cool and looking out for her. A world where Tamon was living as a normal person? No way! There was no normal person like this in existence. Utage's head was full on carnival right now, and she wasn't going to be able to help him find any love. She apologized for being such an otaku, but he took fault, feeling he hadn't really understood this love thing well. Once again, gloom filled the air. While Tamon went to get drinks, Utage thought about how she just couldn't see him as a normal guy. On the other hand, Aori was yet to understand if these guys were dating or not, and it was pissing him off. Putting on his mask, he'd approach her and ask about her relationship with Tamon. She told him that Tamon wasn't her boyfriend. She didn't really understand love herself and felt like he was hitting on the wrong person. She thought there were plenty of other cute girls around. Just then, Tamon came back, seeing as Aori bashfully complimented Utage's yukata. She almost seemed sweet here, and it was throwing Aori off. It was like something sparked in him. Taking off his wig, Tamon walked up to them, telling Aori not to talk to her because she was his girlfriend. He then grabbed her and walked away. When they were far enough, he finally complimented how lovely she looked in the yukata, though he'd immediately apologized, thinking he said something horrific. She was happy to hear it. Utage just wasn't used to getting compliments, so it surprised her. At that moment, she saw him as a regular guy. They came to this festival so he could find out what love truly was, but that didn't seem to be going very well. So, Tamon resigned himself to being mocked by others for the rest of his life. He wanted to end things now. Just living was his dark history. Seriously? How did he even manage to pull off his hot personality? He wondered if love really existed. He figured just trying to copy others didn't work. Going places with someone else like this wasn't something he usually did. Utage thought it was better to stop doing things they weren't used to, and suggested they try enjoying their time normally, just as friends. He was moved to tears. The only ones he'd been able to open up to were the stains on his wall. So, just hearing the word friends was a lot for him to handle. He apologized for trying to fly when he was only just a caterpillar. But to her, he was a fallen angel who had lost his wings. And she threatened him for insulting himself. Walking back together, he asked if he could call her Master Kinoshita, since being friends meant they were closer than two strangers. Utage didn't know how to handle being called master by a god himself. She told him to just call her Kinoshita, while she referred to him as gloomy Hara-senpai. But to be honest, she was fine with him calling her whatever he liked. Hearing drums in the distance, they went off to join the dance. Tamon was always working hard, and Utage felt he deserved a moment to enjoy being a high school student. So for now, they could just be friends. As they enjoyed their time together, she wondered if this was what he would be like as a regular student. Shortly after, she brought him some ice cream. Seeing that it was already melting, he rushed to take a bite while it was still in her hand. Her heart skipped a beat, but he couldn't help it because his hands were full and he didn't want her yukata getting stained. Afterwards, they'd head over to a private spot where they could watch the fireworks. Here, Tamon could take off his wig and mask. Utage was a lot more relieved seeing his regular hair color. He had dyed his hair pink during his audition, which caused quite a stir among the fans. Tamon went all out, dyeing it a color he thought was the opposite of himself. Ever since then, when he stood in front of the people, he was Harihara. All the fans fell in love with his pink hair and called pink the color of love. But still, it was his hard work that moved everyone's hearts. Unlike Auri, he didn't feel special, and being a failure, all he could do was work hard. Just knowing there were people out there who would cheer for someone like him filled Tamon with so much joy. That was why he wanted to make everyone happy and smile. The last thing he wanted was to be seen as pathetic. He told Utage, "I want people to like me." Seeing him say those words, she felt like he was the one in love at that moment. Even if he didn't have feelings for one specific person, she figured this was like love to him. And if that was the case, maybe he already knew his answer. She told him that the fact he worked so hard was also love. Raising her fist in the air, the fireworks went off, spreading love throughout the night sky. Her words moved him, and he thanked her, calling her Uta-chan. He wondered if this was also love he was feeling in the moment. But Utage absolutely refused, telling him this was camaraderie from pretending to be friends. A fleeting illusion. She didn't want him having any kind of world-ending misunderstandings. The second round was finally here, a complete 180 from the first round of visual battles. This time, things were going to get much more physical, starting out with a race to run on water. Tamon came out on top. As usual, he struck the heart of his girlfriends all over the world. On another day, Utage would receive a call from work, telling her that someone had specially requested her services. Getting to the house, she was stunned, seeing it was Auri. She told him that the winner of the competition hadn't been decided yet. But he'd pull her inside, claiming this was a separate matter. He would then ask her if she was going out with Tamon. To make such a blasphemous assumption, she was furious. Utage made it clear that Tamon would never settle for one girl. Rather, he was someone who would eventually make all of humanity his girlfriends. She threatened to turn Auri into dust for a sacrilege. Since she wasn't dating, that was fine with him. That was all he wanted to know. Before he could open the door to kick her out, he would slump onto her shoulder. His face was burning red from a fever. When he woke up, Utage had put him in bed and put on a cooling pad to help with his fever. But he wasn't even the least bit grateful. 2 of the 5 rounds to determine the center had ended with Tamon and Auri currently tied for first place. No one knew how it was going to end just yet. And somehow, Utage ended up in a nursing event with the one who wasn't even her bias. Bringing back their discussion from earlier, she mentioned how he brought her here just to find out if she was dating Tamon. That aside, the room was sparkling all around, thanks to her hard work. After all, that was why she came here. Auri didn't understand why she would do that. Didn't she hate him? But she only saw this as her job. He'd ask her to come over tomorrow, but she coldly told him to make appointments over the phone, then took her leave. On her way to Tamon's place, she felt a bit nervous. They hadn't seen each other since the summer festival. Back then, she witnessed various sides of him she had never seen before, but she tried not to let that moment get into her head. At Gloomy Hada's place, he wanted to end it all. Same business as usual. However, it turned out that Auri sent him a picture of Utage at his place. She explained that she went there to take care of him. Tamon had no idea Auri was sick. He didn't come from rehearsals today and told them he was taking the day off. It seemed like he just didn't want the others to see him in a weak state, like some feisty cat. Utage was going to check on him the following day, so she asked Tamon to focus on himself. Over at Auri's place, Utage saw his temperature was higher than it was the previous day. She mentioned that Tamon was worried about him, but he didn't want to hear anything about Tamon. Just like Tamon, Auri was also probably under a lot of pressure during this competition for the center. She wished they could just get along. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. It was Tamon. He came to see how Auri was doing, and even brought some plain white sugar for him. He didn't know what Auri liked, so he just brought sugar? Auri didn't want any of that, and demanded that he leave. Utage would stop him, explaining that Tamon was just scared he'd yell at him for picking the wrong thing. But Tamon would usually avoid him, so Auri didn't get why he was here. Tamon explained he came because he was concerned, especially since Auri never skipped rehearsals before. Auri would use this chance to put him to work. Utage had cleaned bigger homes before, but this was the first one that had a pool. As she and Tamon began scrubbing, she asked how he felt about Auri. He admitted his fellow idol scared him, and he knew Auri hated him as well. But he couldn't blame him. When he came to Tokyo to audition and was basically a lost puppy, Auri was the one who taught him all kinds of things. And yet, Tamon outshone him, coming in first place. Heartbroken, Auri cried bitterly in a corner, and Tamon was left speechless by the sight of it. Ever since then, Tamon felt he couldn't hold anything against Auri. He'd even be willing to give up the center spot to him. But lately, he'd been feeling like there had to be some other way. Tamon didn't like to compete with Auri when he wasn't his best, so this time, he wasn't holding back. Seeing Tamon's determination sent Utage's spirit to heaven. As he stared at her in angel form floating away, Auri would spray water on him, snapping him back to reality. Tamon then asked him to get over his cold quickly, because he planned to defeat Auri with everything he had. Likewise, Auri was happy to take on the challenge. As they began arguing, it looked like they were finally getting along. Their battle continued, with Auri winning round 3 of the competition for center. Round 4 was a hidden talent battle, and with his irresistible charms, Tamon came out as the winner. With this, he was currently in first place. The fans' support got even more fired up as the rankings kept changing at a dizzying pace. For some reason, Utage and her friends perfectly copied Tamon's dance and shot a dance cover video, with the final round being a singing battle. It would all come down to their abilities. Leaving Tamon's place, she bumped into Auri. At the same time, Tamon saw she had forgotten her fan. Auri thanked her for the other day and started boasting about his win during the 3rd round, but she shot back, reminding him that Tamon won in the 4th round. He then swore to leave everyone in the dust during the last round and win. Recalling that Tamon only liked to compete against Auri at his best, Utage asked him to do his very best. Little did she know, Tamon was nearby listening, but she was sure he would be happy if Auri did his best. Auri would then take back their agreement from before. Instead, he asked her to be his fan if he won. She would then ask him to become Tamon's fan as well if he won, and handed him a Tamon poster. Auri, however, tossed it away. At the studio, Tamon stayed behind to practice his singing more, and Wataru advised him not to overdo it. Back home, Utage found him passed out on the couch, unlike his usual position cowering in the corner. Then, her mind began running wild. She thought about taking a break on his eyelashes, and probably using his cheeks as a slide. Oh my god, such a wild train of thought. Despite living in the same dimension, she thought he was so high res. Everyone who lined up next to him was basically reduced to pixel art. She wondered if this is what it'd be like if Cleopatra reincarnated as a hot guy. Seeing that his face was paler than usual, she covered him with a blanket. While she arranged the table, he suddenly woke up. Looking at her, he recalled when she told Auri to do his best. Tamon then grabbed her from behind, hugging her while half asleep. She could tell there was something resting on her back, but the thought of it being Tamon was unfathomable. It had to be a fantasy, so she focused on getting work done, refusing to even look behind her. The last battle was tomorrow. Soon, everything would be decided. Inside her Tamon's shrine, she prayed for him to be rewarded for all his hard work. The next day, Tamon arrived late in the studio, and the worst thing possible happened. His voice was raspy, except It wasn't just him. Aoi would walk in with the same problem. Shortly after, the final battle began. Tamon would be the first to take the mic. As the instrumentals came in, Utage stared desperately at her screen, waiting to hear his heavenly voice. When the idols were done singing, Riko and Yuina felt Tamon did great, but Utage sensed he was holding back his radiance. It seemed like he wasn't doing well either. But being his fan, she remained positive. Meanwhile, Izumi told the idols to prepare for the new song's pre-release, which was around the corner. Then, her eyes darted to Aoi and Tamon, questioning their awful performance. They might have deceived others, but she and the judges couldn't be deceived. She let them know that practicing too much and overworking were signs of failure. They needed to be able to perform at 2,000% at any time. Before slamming the door, she told them Face doesn't need any imperfections. While her friends were shopping for fan merchandise, Utage drowned in despair. The more she watched the video, the more it looked like Tamon wasn't doing his best. If he didn't stay the center, she didn't know what she'd do. More importantly, she was worried about his feelings, hoping he wasn't all depressed from doom scrolling for his name. She had never worried this much before meeting him. She questioned if she was a failure as a fan. Aoi and Tamon sat beside each other, sulking about their failure, though Aoi claimed this was Tamon's fault. On the other hand, Tamon was overwhelmed with the feeling of not wanting to fail or betray the support of his fans. The more they were nice to him, the happier and more scared he became. There would always be fans who drifted away, and those who stayed, so Aoi didn't get why he was thinking that way. It really got Tamon depressed, but Aoi didn't like that he was still dwelling on the past. The stadium was packed with fans the next day. Finally, with this performance, they'd know the center of Face. As the curtains came down, Kaito was revealed as the new center. Tears welled up in Utage's and Tamon's eyes. Although Tamon didn't make it, he would always be the center in her heart. Aww. I mean, that's just how it goes sometimes. Sometimes, your best just isn't enough. Subscribe to keep up with new parts, but for now, watch this next video. It's me, Comfy T. I'll see you all in the next one.